Your Practical Magic, where we talk about ways to recognize and encourage the magic in your everyday life. We're also big on celebrating when the practical is divine and when the magic is human, because it all counts. Happy day to you, YPMer. It's Noreen, and we have a fun one for you today. We are talking corporate personality assessments. Yay! Now, before you hit stop, I'm not being totally truthful with you. We're taking a look at systems that help you see how you and those around you tick so that you can gain insight and practical ways to relate, connect, and communicate. While it did start with our former corporate careers, there are newer energy-based ones we really dig into, plus a whole flock of birds. So have a listen to get a sense of your personal style. While our curious need to know might be the doorway we go through for this type of information, you'll keep going for the inroads to compassion for yourself and others. A deeper understanding woven with acceptance creates a liberating lightness. You're open to living and let live. And with that freedom comes the grace, ease, and joy we're here to help you know in your whole being. Speaking of our mission, we're so excited that you've been getting in touch. We're cooking up more ways to connect to you and to connect you to each other. So sign up for our newsletter at yourpracticalmagic.com. We're also going to have bonus one-sheets for your bird species available as a gift to our listeners. So again, sign up and pass it on. We appreciate you and how you help us grow. Off we go.
Hi, WayPMers. We have a very special show for you today. But before we get started, we wanted to share with you some really great responses we've been getting. So this is from one of our listeners who sent in a message to us. Hi, I just listened to Toxic Positivity, which was great. I'm like you, a fixer, and I want everyone to feel better. It's so hard to just be accepting of someone being unhappy or sad or mad, but I love what you said. Just say you're sorry that you are feeling that way and let them have their feelings.
I love that.
Yeah.
And guys, we're so appreciative to you all sending in your feedback. We're using speakpipe.com at Your Practical Magic, and also email, and any way really you want to send us a message. You could use the cardinal that we talked about last time.
Yes.
But here's one other one that was shared with us since our last recording with you guys. Knowing your no was so good. It was comforting to hear others have trouble saying no out of guilt. After listening, I removed an obligation from my to-do list, I'm inserting the word list, and used that time to read a book instead. It was a game changer. Thank you. So I love this because this has actually informed our topic today.
Yes, absolutely.
Really accepting yourself and the differences between you and others.
That's right. You know, it's interesting, for the past few months, we've had to reinvent how we communicate with each other through virtual situations or even in tough discussions that have been happening around the world. And it reminded me a lot about different work styles and different learning styles that I've become aware of in my adulthood. Earlier in my career, I had a manager and we were really butting heads, and we were sent off to a class together to learn how to work well together. And what really came out of that was one of many trainings that I got to go to, and Noreen, I know you've had your own.
Well, this was this at MTV?
Yep, MTV Network.
Because they were famous for this.
Famous, but it was really a game changer for me. I tested in a quadrant that was very creative, and I was in a place where I was people-focused and fast-paced and all these different things that made sense for my personality style. And then my manager was in the opposite, the absolute opposite. She wanted details. She wanted me to slow down. She wanted a slower pace. She didn't want to have chit-chat. She wanted to get it right to she was task-oriented. So once we took this class and understood that from each other and how we needed to work with each other to make the other one feel comfortable and heard and all that stuff, it really was a big difference in our working dynamics. And then even recently, Noreen and I were working on our preparation for our upcoming podcast episodes. And even here we realized that we have different work styles and that we needed to just become more aware of how to work best together.
And flex a little bit to each other. Certainly it is about acknowledging your own personal work style. Sometimes it's these assessment tests that are offered everywhere from jobs to dating sites, you know.
Yep.
It gives you insight into yourself. Sometimes it just gives credence to what you already know about yourself. And it can help you, as Jen is sharing with her first boss, help you navigate when someone you're working with is nothing like you. But I like the idea of just even that acknowledgement that gives you a little bit of a roadmap so that you can still stay true to yourself.
Yep.
But make a work situation or a relationship, an interpersonal dynamic of some sort, smoother, at your own invitation without losing your own center and self.
Yeah, and what's really funny about that particular one, I assumed that this was me personally, but when I realized there is a whole world of people who work like me or like their information like me, and that we also have a version of ourself where we're stressed that is typical for our style, it really just brought so much more awareness to myself at work, with my family, with my boyfriend at the time, whoever it was. It really is just an incredible thing, and I forget about it every now and then something striking like being stuck indoors with the people that you quote unquote love for X amount of days really makes things rise to the surface. We're all of a sudden like, oh, we're falling backwards. Let's get back to this. How can we flex so that we can work well together? So
it is true that you brought up the stress style too, because that is a version of that understanding of yourself, right? There's something that happens that's a little more heightened, more reactive.
Definitely, definitely. So there's all these different systems that I had been trained in, or that I had taken to work well with my coworkers, or as you said, Noreen, career assessment tests, things like that. And the one that I found really fun and easy to get is DISC. And I'm just going to tell you about the 4 different styles there and listen to see which one you think you are. You might be one, you might be a combination of 2. So the first one is the D style, and that's an individual who basically wants you to give them the bottom line, be brief, focus your discussion narrowly, and refrain from repeating yourself, and they really want solutions rather than problems. Some famous Ds are Barbara Walters and Judge Judy. And then there's a book out there where they liken these styles to birds. So the D style would be the eagle, the one who flies and can see the 10,000 foot view and just goes for its prey. In that case, it's the task-oriented goal. And then there's also a real fun thing I came across, which is Star Wars characters, their DISC style. So the D style for this would be Darth Vader, as you probably would have guessed. For I, when communicating with an I individual, these are people who are very talkative. I will clue you in that I'm part I.
I'm still stuck on Darth Vader. I must be part D.
Yeah, I mean, and don't think of it as Darth Vader is a bad guy or any of these. By the way, none of these are right or wrong.
Very, very goal oriented.
Yes, very goal oriented. I mean, a lot of leaders.
I mean, so is Princess Leia. Anyway.
Well, they only did 4, but yeah, and they were sexist obviously when they put this together. Just to back up, all of these styles, none of them are better than the other one. They all work well together and enhance each other. But for the I style, the bird for this one is the parrot. And the famous examples are Dolly Parton and Robin Williams, and the Star Wars one for this is Han Solo. These are people who are very talkative, they have a strong personality, they don't want to be overloaded with details. Raising my hand, I don't want to be overloaded with details. I do get overwhelmed with details. The next one, which I'm also personally part of.
Wait, so you're part I, part S?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm half I, half I. It was like almost split, like a 51-48 type. Or 49. See? I'm not even good at math. Details.
Wait, and I'm like, wait, I want to know more. This was at Bravo?
Yes, I took this at Bravo. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So for the S style, the bird is the dove. And examples of this are like Michelle Obama and Gandhi. And someone who's an S is someone who is people-oriented, but they are a slower pace. They want to make sure that they like to avoid confrontation. They don't like overly aggressive and rude people. They do want to take some time to provide clarification. They're very thoughtful in the way that they want to think through things a little bit more and very personal. The Star Wars version for this was listed as Luke Skywalker. I don't know if that's true or not. I think so.
We'll have to ask him.
Yeah, we'll have to ask him exactly.
It's true or not.
And then
I am a little baffled by Michelle Obama and Gandhi being non-confrontational or avoiding confrontation.
Well, I think what it really comes down to is their way of confrontation might not be coming back at someone in the same
overtly.
way. Yeah, they come back from a place of more like centered, calm. Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high.
Mm-hmm.
That's different than saying those people are this.
Right.
That's what it is. It just comes from that kind of a place.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then the last one is the C style. And these are people that are focused on facts and details. They don't want any they're not really into emotional language or pep talks. They prefer to have accuracy and standards and tend to be moderately paced and task focused. So the bird for this would be the owl. And that makes, sense when you think of the academic owl, or however the owl shows up in stories and different things. The Star Wars character for this is C-3PO. And then some famous examples I found for this are Bill Gates and Diane Sawyer. It's the wanting to know information before you get started, that kind of thing. So, the cool thing is understanding all these different styles and how they interact with one another can help you in your work and your personal life. When we send out our newsletter, or you go deeper into these things, you'll find the different stress styles and how those 4 different personality types react when they're under stress. I believe the owl retreats. I know that the parrot attacks. Everyone's got their mode of calming things back down. The disc was just another thing that we did, and I liked all the different ways to think about it using famous people and birds and whatnot.
Jen and I, in preparing for this, looked at about 4 or 5 different systems that we've been exposed to in our professional and personal lives. And it's always 4, right? It seems like in general, historically, this is all coming out of, I think initially, organizational psychology. We teach this in Eden Method as well, and Donna Eden and her husband David Feinstein have even published a book on it called The Energies of Love. How you're processing energy is the way that it's taught for us, and how we come at it so that we're able to help people with interpersonal relationships, which from our perspective is whether they're appearing or occurring at work or in your personal life.
Yeah.
But it is, again, 4 styles. So the way we break it down is into the visual style, which means that you're really perceiving and taking in energy and the messages within energy primarily through the eyes.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's kinesthetic, which is, very touch-oriented, very empathetic. Tonal is the hearing, is the ears. And then digital is very mental. You're still processing all of these emotional and energetic messages through the mind.
Yep.
So you're very logical.
It isn't just your personality, it's also how you interact with energy.
Yeah, and again, it's the same idea that this is generally how you're processing energy, but when you're stressed, it becomes distorted. And so you start to, distort the way that you sense a message. I'm just going to roll through some of these. This is just a brief summary. If you guys are interested, dig deeper into the book or look up some of the videos online, and our newsletter will give you more links in order to do that and make that easy to do. For example, with a visual style, the person who's a visual is really engaging and sweeps people up into their vision, quite literally, his or her vision. And people can go quite a way down the road with them and realize, wait a second, this isn't my vision, right? Or they could be quite excited by it because they're being given that direction. So when that happens, when the person gets stressed, the visual gets stressed, they lose perspective. So they start to get a little nitpicky. They see what you're doing wrong and they can't see their part in it. There's a lot of disappointment and can be very critical and judgmental because of that. And therefore, again, when they're not seeing their part in it, they're pushing it outwards. They're thinking it's someone else's fault. They could become very dismissive. So these are all important to see in yourself and others, if possible, again, to try to help navigate these in more peaceful, holistic ways, really.
What you just said resonated with me in my personal life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, we all know one.
Yeah.
We all got one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into tonal now, which is about hearing things. And it took me years to realize that someone in my inner circle is a tonal. And it's fascinating. These are very intuitive people, and they're naturally gifted in making you feel heard, understood. They have this ability to know and hear what you're saying in between the lines and in the words. So there's this safety of understanding with them until they're stressed. Then when they're stressed, they can get stuck. They can imagine that they heard things that you never said. They can bring up past hurts that they're linking to the current situation without even realizing that they're doing it. They distort what you've said. So that's a really tricky one, because you could be adamant and swear that you know you didn't say something, and this person is also swearing that you did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in conflict, obviously, and in stress situations. They want to be heard, and they're angry when they feel like they haven't been. So that's part of what's going on when that distortion occurs. They can challenge you to trust your own words. So they're very analytical, they're very judgmental. They actually can have volume vacillations where things actually sound louder to them than they are if they're out of balance. So we're going to give you some tips on these if this happens to be resonating for you or for someone you know.
I'm going to need them because that's just the stress part on both of them. I feel like I'm seeing myself in some of it, and actually both.
Well, just as you said with the other styles, many people are more than one.
Yeah.
You might very well have a primary and a secondary that isn't necessarily even related to a stress response. You know, you're just born that way.
Lovely.
No, but it's good. It means you have more empathetic skills too. So the kinesthetic, it's funny you said that because you talked about getting overwhelmed with details. The kinesthetic style, that's what happens, is they get super overwhelmed. They're also great at knowing how people are feeling and being able to bridge any gap between how someone's able to express themselves and how they can understand what that person is trying to communicate. But of course, that does mean that they become a bit enmeshed and they believe their feelings 2,000%. There's really not a lot of room for logic in their world. They could become overly compassionate.
That one is 100%. I'm seeing myself in all of them, but that one I'm like, wow.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. They know how you feel. They have great depths of compassion, which is a massive gift, but at the same time, it can prevent them from saying what's hard to hear. I want to say this without judgment, but they're overly skewed towards not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings. It's a feeling-oriented perception.
Yeah.
When they're stressed out, they lose their words. It's hard for them to communicate because they've gotten overwhelmed by emotion. And so you kind of can't get the thoughts out of your head. You're not thinking straight literally any longer.
That part didn't relate. I never lose my words.
Yeah, and then they can actually suffer for the other person. That's that enmeshed reality. And can ultimately, because of the overwhelm, need to explode and storm out or leave. That leaves us with our digital. The digital is the one that's filtering the energy and the experience through the mind and through thoughts. So they're very kind, calm, and rational people. They can be elegantly logical, but they also get often pinned as Mr. Spocks. That would be Star Trek, not Star Wars, but still. They're very, very much in the head, so they're not necessarily connected to their body and the more somatic experiences that are happening as they experience energy through, communication and through stress. They could be too calm, cool, and collected to others. Other people are like, why aren't you reacting? They could be exasperating because they could be so calm, cool, and collected that their partners or the people interacting with them feel lonely. They feel not understood. So that is the sensory styles and how they experience energy, but also how they experience distorted energy when in conflict and under stress.
Which of those have you either found as your result or do you identify with?
It's funny. I'm not even sure I'm 100% clear yet, but I'm definitely a kinesthetic. I experience energy, but I think because I'm a kinesthetic, I have developed a coping system that's a digital.
Oh, that's so interesting, because digital I felt zero for me. I could totally see that with you.
Yeah.
I would like that. My God. Give me some digital.
And it's funny, when I was looking at this, it's like, yeah, it's a great place to hide if you're a kinesthetic.
Well, it's I wouldn't say place to hide, but it's a good balance, because that is the opposite of feeling everything, is being able to be calm about it and not carry it with you in a heavy way or whatever.
Yeah, it is weird. Like, I've thought about it. So let me finish that thought and say, I do believe that I've created some kind of through line or, processing pipe that takes in what's going on, and rather than overwhelm me, sends it through to the mind so that I could figure it out and then deal with it. I think. And I have a funny story. When I was studying for my Eden certification, we had a nighttime beginning to this particular teaching, and it was just very quick. This kind of falls into the world of personality tests, even though we're not dealing with only personality, but it's certainly the personality aspect of ourselves that's dying to know what bucket I'm in.
Yes.
Right? Like, what do I do? The reason we're sharing this with everyone today is that there are definitely helpful dimensions to this, but I would coach everyone, right, to move beyond just the limitations of knowing yourself more in a horoscope type of way.
Of course. Yep.
But that's where it starts. So that's where it started for this night, and we were getting our first introduction to these 4 types. And there is a test to confirm what you think you are based on the descriptions, and a little quiz we have. And so we were testing each other, and I tested, and then we all went into the 4 different groups. And I tested digital, so I was in the group of the digitals. And it was a small group, let me tell you, at Eden. At Eden School, the digitals are not a big group.
Yeah.
And everybody's kinesthetic.
Oh, you're funny.
So I was with this group, and it was about really, it was about 4 or 5 people, whereas like every other group was 50 people or more. And these people were talking, and I really did not understand what they were saying. Like, I just wasn't relating to what they were saying. And then Titania Dahlin, who is Donna's daughter, one of Donna's daughters, she comes scooting by and just kind of like whispers in my ear, "What are you doing with the digitals?"
Oh my God, that's funny.
And I was like, "I don't know. This is what I tested out as." And she's like, "You're not digital."
Well, that's an interesting thing, because I know that sometimes when people take the test, they do end up in something where it seems like, I'm not saying you did this. Maybe you're answering the questions of what you think you're supposed to be answering, or thinking about it too much, and then it's not really coming from your like quick answer.
Well, that would be what a digital would do.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
I will say, from my personal experience, any test I take, I'm not in any one bucket. I'm generally 3. I seem to span 3. So that was kind of the case. Actually, in this sensory style case, I was 2. And so I'm a kinesthetic digital, which, like you said, it's anybody's, I can't think of the word again. I'm forgetting my words. I must be an overwhelmed kinesthetic.
When I first took the very first test early in my career, I was like off the charts in one corner of a square. And then over time, I shifted into a very equal part, the I and the S in the disc version, where I was always people oriented and working fast, and then there was the one that was where I wanted to slow down. There's you having your primary and your secondary, or your natural and your
adaptive, maybe. Yeah.
Adaptive, exactly. So, I definitely am a combination of those two, and they're pretty almost equal. But I know, like, in my personal life, I'm definitely more in the slower pace. Like, I don't want to be running all day. But when I'm working or doing something that's like a project where I'm with other people, I do prefer to move at a faster pace. Maybe that's something for you as well with the kinesthetic, that's your natural state. But when you're in a group, knowing you from work and how you want to have like tasks and things checked off, maybe that's your adaptive style in that situation.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it seems to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just all interesting.
Yes. It's especially, I think, interesting when you start figuring out the people that you live with or work with or whatever, interact with in any way, and you start identifying them, and it just makes sense. If there's a troubling conversation or inability to get along in any way, and you see these different things, it just gives a little clarity of why, so it's not so personal in some ways, and then you can just recognize it and be able to appreciate it and find ways to work within it.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of said it already, but just to really spell it out, it becomes, the reason we're talking about this today is it becomes another tool in your toolbox, right?
Yep.
To navigate towards a life of grace, ease, and joy, ultimately.
That's right.
Well, you get to choose. You get to choose how to
Show up.
find the middle way. Yeah, right? How to show up. One thing, Jen, you were saying about your first test early in your career, having one set of results and shifting as you continued. I mean, a lot of this is really about the reflective reality of who we are as we settle into being ourselves and dropping any of the veils or any of the roles that we're playing that might have been foisted on us by others. So it's really another tool to help you chart your own path to your center of self.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's why I do it.
Yep.
And to yell at my somebody that he's a tonal. No.
Well, I mean, there's so many times where you're talking about this and I'm thinking of, oh, that's my husband, or oh, that's my mom, or
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Ah, now I get it.
I have to think about my sister. I'll have to do that offline. What's her style? Anyways, yeah, but it is fun. You do start to think about the people you spend a lot of time around. As well as self.
That's resonating with me too.
What I think is interesting, we're talking about this having the 4 buckets, whether it be the social styles, the disc, the sensory systems, and within the energies of love that Donna and David put out. Emerging into mainstream, I would say, is the Enneagram.
Yep.
We were also going to talk about something called Kolbe Cognitive Style, which is something that Martha Beck put into her training program. It's another set of 4, and we could do a little article in our newsletter about it, because it feels like we've kind of mined what those 4 are. It's like you work fast, you work slow, you process hard, you process emotionally,
Yep.
So it's kind of what it is. But if you guys remember Deb Shalafo, she's an amazing font of knowledge about the Enneagram, as are several people in our world. And we have been pursuing this in a lot of different ways. EJ and I took a course when people could still go to courses. I looked it up. It was March 3rd of 2020. We were at this workshop. And what I really found fascinating about this was not only was it a deep dive into the Enneagram, which is way beyond 4. It's 12, and there's overlapping wings, and then there's interactions across. So it's almost as if the personality test or the energy assessment has almost gone into the realm of horoscope in a way. I'm sure that's not accurate for someone who knows what the Enneagram is, but I'm just bringing up the idea of the houses interacting with each other, and the fact that there's 12. So what we were pretty fascinated by is that this has gone mainstream in HR organizations across the country, and they're now using this rather than these 4 bucket modules that started from Myers-Briggs to social styles to the Kolbe cognitive style that we were just talking about. So I think we're going to dig into that more, like as a whole episode, because that's just a big one.
Yeah. I had a manager who was obsessed with this. And part of the reason I was having trouble digesting it is because, like you said, there's all these layers and then they all interact with each other. And I was like, this is like a science test.
She's overwhelmed.
I was overwhelmed with the details. And I can't remember, I did take it and I can't remember what I came up with. I think that I assumed I was the helper, number 2, but then I ended up being something else where I was like, I don't know, that's my results. I do think there's so much information that it would help to have like a full episode devoted just to explaining it more.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do that.
There's so much information, and me being my SI, my S, whatever I was, that doesn't like details, I need someone to kind of, walk me through it a little bit.
Break it down. It's a lot.
Break it down, yeah. Okay, YPMers, now it's time for you to do this at home. This is our dose. To make a list of 3 people who you have a difficult time working with or communicating with, and try to identify which bird you think they are, which style do you think they are. And then once you do that, practice flexing and sharing what you need from them to see if you can get centered and work better together. And of course, we would love to hear if you tried this and what you discovered. Please remember to go to speakpipe.com/yourpracticalmagic. It's also in the description listed if you need help finding it. But we really would love to hear how this worked for you and what came of it.
I love that. That's very cool. And I think also in our newsletter, we'll do a little write-up of what you can do to rebalance your sensory style. It's a lot of the tools that we've shared with you in the past. We'll just do a little thing, but if you remember in the past, you can always count on a blowout to clear yourself and hook up. But I'll write it up for you guys so that you can have a reference. And then I think that we should transition to our crush. I've been holding this one for a while. This quote has been on my bulletin board in my office for a couple of years now, and I refer to it constantly. So I am so excited for it to be appropriate to share with you today. This is a quote from Ken Burns, the documentary filmmaker. And here it is. We lament the lack of heroes today, but we expect a kind of perfection that exists only among gods. The heroes of mythology are not perfect people, but people with very obvious strengths and very obvious weaknesses. What we see as heroism is a negotiation between strength and weakness. So if we can look past our original assumption that heroes are flawless, then all of a sudden the world is populated with more forms of heroism than we could ever expect. Yes.
I really, really love that, Noreen.
I love Ken Burns.
I had never heard that quote, and it really fits so perfectly with what we've talked about today, which is like all the different styles and how all of them have their own strengths.
Yeah.
And it made me think of my human kindness. I have my own hero, and that's an English teacher that we had in high school who recently passed. And the reason she was a hero to myself and to so many others in my school growing up is because she was the teacher who saw you, heard you, supported you, celebrated you. I mean, every year for her birthday, I would always say, "You're the teacher who got me."
Oh.
She just, was an incredible person. I have a quick funny story if you want to hear. If you don't, I'm still telling it. A quick story. Her name was Mrs. Luckenhouse, Barbara Luckenhouse. And one day my friend was in her class, and I was trying to tell my friend through the window something, like I'll be in the cafeteria or something. And without missing the beat, Mrs. Luckenhouse continued to lecture to the class, looking forward at the class, but walked sideways over to the window I was, motioning to my friend through with a roll of paper towels, and then she dropped the paper towels down like a curtain to block me from seeing my friend. It was like show's over, and it was just very funny.
Gonna say this show's over.
Yeah, she knew that that's who I was, and and she was sending me a message like not now, and it was very funny. And she's my human kindness. We're all gonna miss her so much. Yeah, we were all still in touch with her.
Well, that's kind of perfect. Friends, our show is over.
So we're dying to know what kind of bird you are, where you're testing out.
Yeah, let us know. We're very excited. Wait, you didn't tell me what kind of bird I am.
What do I think?
It's a test. I have to take a test.
Well, it's based on the... Did you ever do disc?
No.
My initial reaction for you is that you're a combo of eagle and owl.
Mm-hmm.
At work. And then your personality style, I would say maybe, I'm torn. I feel like it's either, I can't tell if it's eagle, parrot, or dove, owl.
I'm the whole coop, the whole bird coop.
You're the whole coop, but I mean, you're able to pause and compose and do certain things. And I don't know if I take that as that's the pace you prefer. It's more about that's how you present. So I'm going to go with your eagle and maybe a little parrot. Final answer.
Final answer.
But I think first and foremost, you're eagle.
Fly like an eagle.
What do you think you are?
I don't think I know enough about that one really to say.
Did you ever do the other one, the social styles or anything? Have you ever been put in a box, Noreen?
I have spent my life not being put in boxes.
Well, I know. I hate boxes.
I mean, I am definitely a get it done kind of person. I really enjoy getting things done.
And you like details.
And I do like details.
So that's, yeah, but
yeah.
I'm sticking with my answer. I think you're a D.
But I like laughing and I like having fun.
Well, they're not animals.
They're birds.
They're not barbaric. I mean, Barbara Walters and Judge Judy I would totally hang out with at a cocktail party.
Very, very witty and funny, I'm sure, the two of them.
Yeah. And I'm sure Darth Vader's a riot too.
Yeah, literally a riot.
Well, I mean, if he's not like busy trying to do whatever he's trying to do, and you see him in his personal life, wouldn't you think he's like charming?
Well, yeah, when not killing his son, but yeah.
Who doesn't want to kill their son once in a while? I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. Very fast.
JK.
JK. Okay, listeners, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Until next time. That's this episode of Your Practical Magic. Thanks for being here with us. Please remember to like and share on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And go to @YourPracticalMagic on Instagram or Facebook for visuals on all of our doses and more. Please like and share there too.